Good day, this is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you for Reason to Resist on February 7th, 2026. After spending the past 2 weeks in Colombia and Venezuela, I've just returned to Montreal. And as I explained in my final report from Bogota, which we published yesterday, we intend to focus in the coming weeks on the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Of course, we'll report on other stories too. There's far too much happening in the world to focus on any one thing. But in light of the latest Department of Justice release of millions of Epstein files, we consider it imperative that Reason to Resist give more attention to this burgeoning scandal. What the Epstein scandal reveals about the people who rule over us is simply too important and too disturbing to be ignored or even downplayed. Our report today will focus on Epstein's New York City House of Horrors, and I'm referring here to the mansion situated at 9 East 71st Street, in Manhattan. This is the Upper East Side. Many of the world's wealthiest and most powerful people own property in that part of New York City. In 2005, and by way of background, police in Palm Beach, Florida began investigating Epstein after a parent reported that he had sexually abused her 14-year-old daughter. Going back many years, Epstein had abused over 1,200 girls, some reportedly as young as 11 years old, and who knows how much younger they might have actually been. Now, despite the enormity of his pedophilia, Florida officials gave Epstein an incredible sweetheart deal. In 2008, pursuant to that deal, Epstein pleaded guilty and was convicted by a Florida state court of only 2 charges: procuring a child for prostitution and soliciting a prostitute. He served a mere 13 months in custody and did so with extensive work release. After Epstein's release from prison, he continued to live in stunning opulence, and hundreds of the world's most powerful men, and even some powerful women, continued to socialize and do business with Epstein. After 2008, as more information emerged about the vast scope of Epstein's sex crimes, the U.S. Department of Justice came under increasing pressure to prosecute Epstein. As a federal law enforcement agency, the DOJ was not constrained by the plea deal approved by the state court in Florida in 2008. Finally, on July 6, 2019, the FBI belatedly arrested Epstein and charged him with much more serious crimes than those for which he had been convicted in Florida. Although even that indictment, about which I'll say a few words in this report, was far too little in relation to the vast crimes committed by this monster. 5 days after Epstein was arrested on July 6th, which is to say on July 11th, the FBI conducted a thorough search of Epstein's Manhattan palace. In that search, FBI investigators took at least 3,158 photographs of the interior of Epstein's home. In late December of last year, the DOJ released those photographs pursuant to the Epstein Files Transparency Act, a piece of legislation which Donald Trump was heavily pressured to sign into law by lawmakers on both sides of the aisle in November of last year. And it had set a deadline of December 21st for the release. The DOJ failed to comply with that deadline in a very big way, and even to this day has not complied with it. But they very recently, within the last couple of weeks, put out into the public domain some 3 million pages of documents. Now, these photographs, the ones that relate to Epstein's New York mansion, appear as data set 1 on the DOJ's website for the published Epstein files. As I myself have reviewed in the past couple of days the first 1,200 photographs in data set 1, and I'll put a link to the complete data set in the description to this video, just in case you want to examine the photographs yourself, including those that I've not had an opportunity yet to review. Now, based on my review of 1,200 photos in that data set, it appears that federal investigators created a complete photographic record of Epstein's New York mansion. They took multiple photos of every kitchen, every dining and living room, every bedroom, every study, every bathroom, every hallway, and even Epstein's large gym. As a result, the Fed's photographs offer valuable and quite shocking insights into how Jeffrey Epstein lived after his conviction in 2008. More importantly, because the photographs show that Epstein flaunted his sexual obsession for girls, they raise damning questions about what was known by the powerful men who frequented Epstein's New York mansion in the final years of his disgusting life. In this report, I'll share with you the photographs that I regard as the most disturbing and revealing images contained in the DOJ's database. You might have seen a few of them before, but based on my review of the limited media reporting on Epstein's House of Horrors, I expect that most of these photographs will be new to our audience. They certainly were new to me when I saw them in my review over the last couple of days. Now, why are these photographs important? After all, we've known for a long time that Jeffrey Epstein was a monster. Well, I believe there are at least two reasons why these photographs remain important. First, hundreds of powerful and wealthy men visited Epstein's home after his conviction in 2008. Some stayed for extended periods at Epstein's residence. Many of these men claim that they did not know the full extent of Epstein's depravity when they socialized or did business with him after 2008. Others have suggested that they believed, wrongly, that Epstein was reformed, that he felt genuine remorse for his crimes, and he had been rehabilitated into society. But as I mentioned a moment ago, the photographs prove that in his New York mansion, Epstein's depraved sexual obsession with children was on full display. No one could have spent significant time in that den of depravity without noticing it. This photographic evidence demolishes the claim that visitors to Epstein's home honestly believed that Epstein had been redeemed and rehabilitated. The second reason that these photographs are important is that they demonstrate just how luxuriously Epstein lived right up until his final arrest in July 2019. When Epstein allegedly died on August 10th, 2026, and I say allegedly because although I think he probably is dead, I wouldn't exclude the possibility that the feds are lying and he's somewhere alive today, hiding out from the consequences of his criminality. But in any case, when he died or allegedly died on August 10th, 2026, about 1 month after his final arrest, he was 66 years old. After Epstein's death, the executors of his estate valued his fortune at $578 million, well over $500 million, with his real estate holdings making up about $117 million of that amount. Why was Epstein allowed to live in such luxury for so long, right up until his final arrest 1 month before his death, after he had raped, tortured, terrorized, and trafficked in more than 1,200 female minors? If there was any justice in the so-called U.S. justice system, Epstein would have died a penniless man. Every dollar of his wealth would have been distributed to his victims long before his death in 2019. So just who are the men, these powerful men who visited Epstein's New York House of Horrors? Well, let me begin by reciting to you a New York Times article published in August of last year, which begins with these paragraphs. As a gift for Jeffrey Epstein's 63rd birthday, friends sent letters in tribute to the wealthy financier and convicted sex offender. Several shared a common theme, recounting the dinner gatherings that Epstein regularly hosted at his palatial townhouse on Manhattan's Upper East Side. Ehud Barak, former Prime Minister of Israel, and his wife noted the great diversity of guests. Quote, "There is no limit to your curiosity," close quote. They wrote in their message, which was compiled with others in January 2016. And they went on and said, "You are like a closed book to many of them, but you know everything about everyone," close quote. The media mogul Mortimer Zuckerman suggested ingredients for a meal that would reflect the culture of the mansion. A simple salad and whatever else, quote, would enhance Jeffrey's sexual performance, close quote. And the director Woody Allen described how the dinners reminded him of Dracula's castle, quote, where Lugosi has 3 young female vampires who service the place, close quote. That is how the August 2025 New York Times article on Epstein's mansion began. Now, a few of Epstein's frequent guests, as we now know, were, amongst others, Steve Bannon, the former Israeli prime minister who I just mentioned, Ehud Barak, who also, by the way, served as the head of Israel's military intelligence for a number of years, Mort Zuckerman, a Canadian-American media mogul and billionaire, Lord, as they call him, Peter Mandelson, who was a former minister in the British government and until very recently was the UK's ambassador to the US, Woody Allen, who I just mentioned, James Staley, a former senior executive at JP Morgan, former US Treasury Secretary Lawrence Summers, also formerly the president of Harvard, Bill Gates, former US President Bill Clinton, and of course, the utterly disgraced Prince Andrew. And of course, this is by no means an exhaustive list. It's likely that hundreds of powerful and wealthy men visited Epstein's New York House of Horrors over the 17 years that elapsed between the time he was convicted in Florida in 2008 and his final arrest in 2025. Now, according to Israeli newspaper Haaretz, recently released Epstein Files show that Ehud Barak not only visited Epstein's house, the Israeli war criminal also stayed overnight at Epstein's mansion, sometimes with his wife, and did so on multiple occasions. In 2019, Ehud Barak was caught on camera entering the Manhattan townhouse of Jeffrey Epstein with his face hidden. And on the same day, a large group of women were also seen entering Epstein's house. And here you can see the headline from a July 2019 article in the Daily Mail showing in the lower right-hand corner, Ehud Barak attempting to cover the lower half of his face, and several young, attractive women who were seen entering Epstein's mansion on that day. And there's more, by the way. As reported last year by Dropsite News, that has done excellent reporting on Epstein's connections to Israeli intelligence, they said as follows, quote, an Israeli military intelligence officer stayed at Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan apartment, and by apartment, I'm pretty sure they're referring to this mansion, on at least 3 occasions, including once in February 2013, while working as a senior aide to then Israeli Minister of Defense Ehud Barak. Yoni Koren made his intelligence career working in covert operations alongside the Mossad and remained a lieutenant colonel in reserve duty after he officially left the intelligence directorate. He stayed in Epstein's apartment again for 2 weeks in October 2014 and a third time for 10 more days in September 2015. Dropsite compiled evidence of these stays from schedules released by the House Oversight Committee last month and Barak's hacked emails, originally released by the Handala hack team and later shared by Distributed Denial of Secrets. On all 3 trips, Koren appeared to be conducting official or unofficial business. A Times of Israel article from late January 2013, a few weeks before Koren's first documented stay, identifies him as still actively serving as the bureau chief for the Israeli Ministry of Defense that month. And so ends the quote from the extremely informative Dropsite News article. Now, before turning to the photos, here's some important additional information about the background of Epstein's mansion. The 7-story, 42-room neoclassical mansion is cited 14 times in Epstein's federal indictment in 2019, with prosecutors alleging that Epstein recruited and brought dozens of underage victims to the palatial residence. In Nobody's Girl, which was released last year, Epstein victim Virginia Giuffre described being repeatedly subjected to sadomasochistic sexual torture in a massage room in that mansion that she named the Dungeon. Giuffre describes being chained up, fitted with a collar, and beaten in the room until she passed out. Giuffre died in April of last year at the age of 41. Authorities claim that she committed suicide. Originally built for Macy's heir Herbert Strauss in the 1930s, the Epstein mansion was purchased for $13 million in 1989 by retail tycoon Leslie Wexner, the principal of Victoria's Secret and other major clothing brands. Wexner was Epstein's main client and business partner for decades, starting in late 1980s. He is a fanatical Zionist, Les Wexner, that is. A large foundation that Wexner established years ago is explicitly devoted to promoting Israel's agenda. And here you can see an excerpt from its website, which states that since the early 1980s, the Wexner Foundation has been a pioneer in the field of Jewish private philanthropy for 35 years. The foundation has never wavered from its focus upon Jewish leadership in the Jewish world and Israel, and so forth. Now, Epstein took sole possession of the New York City mansion purchased by Wexner, and did so in 1998, but he did not own it until about 13 years later. In 2011, Les Wexner transferred the property to Maple Inc., a U.S. Virgin Islands-based company controlled by Epstein. There are many bizarre and unanswered questions about Wexner's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, but that subject alone could fill an entire book and is beyond the scope of this report. Perhaps we'll have an opportunity to say a lot more about that in the days ahead. In any case, let's turn to the FBI's photographs of the Epstein House of Horrors. And I begin by warning you that these images are deeply disturbing. I certainly found them to be so. And although the faces and genitals of Epstein's victims have been redacted from these photos, and although none of them show any of these females being subjected to abuse, physical direct abuse, or engaging in sexual intercourse, you will see many redacted images of naked or half-naked females who are clearly minors or who might very well be minors. Also, the DOJ's Epstein Files website includes an interesting disclaimer about these images, which I put up on the screen, and it starts. It's entitled "A Privacy Notice" and states, "In view of the congressional deadline," that was December 21st, 2025, by the way, "all reasonable efforts have been made to review and redact personal information pertaining to victims, other private individuals, and protect sensitive materials from disclosure. That said, because of the volume of information involved, this website may nevertheless contain information that inadvertently includes non-public, personally identifiable information or other sensitive content." So it's clear from this language that the redactions were not confined to the identities of victims of Epstein, and the FBI or the DOJ in its privacy notice doesn't tell us what it means by private individuals. Does it mean people who have no public persona at all? Or does it mean people who are trying to preserve their own privacy and don't want their faces or names to be revealed? Or does it mean something else? We simply don't know. And that uncertainty, that ambiguity, frankly, is inexcusable. We should be told precisely what rules the DOJ has employed in deciding what to redact and what not to redact. Now, let's turn then to the photos themselves. Upon entering the house, visitors passed through a large ornate foyer, and the centerpiece of the foyer was a sculpture of a young woman, a young female, I should say, dressed in what appears to be a bridal gown. And you can see there that this is a smallish figure, slender. It's difficult to say exactly how mature the image depicted in this sculpture is. But one thing is clear. You could not possibly have missed that sculpture upon entering the mansion from the front door. And it is a rather creepy image, to put it mildly, particularly when you consider that this mansion belongs to a convicted pedophile. Now, another stunning image from what appears to me to be the main floor of the mansion is this. This is not in the foyer, it's in a hallway leading into a small office. And this is a painting of Bill Clinton, obviously dressed in a blue gown and wearing red high heels. And reportedly, this gown represents the dress that former White House intern Monica Lewinsky was wearing when she performed fellatio on the former U.S. president. Now, beside this is a photograph of not just the painting, but the wall on which it was hanging at the time of the FBI's search of the premises. And you'll see that beside it at that time, there was a framed letter, handwritten letter, posted on the wall. I've tried by magnifying the image to read that letter. I haven't been able to do so. I haven't been able to find any transcription of it. I compared the signature at the bottom of the letter to that of Bill Clinton. It could be Bill Clinton's signature, but I can't be sure of that at all. In any case, this too was prominently displayed on the main floor, as I understand it, of the Epstein residence, and was unlikely seen by a great many people who passed through Epstein's house. Now, let us move on then to other images in the stairwell leading from the main floor to the upper levels. Here is one such photograph, and as you'll see here, there are three drawings or photographs situated or hanging on this wall, and the central one is a rather grim depiction of a rundown building, but the two images of particular interest are those on the left and the right. They appear to be young naked females in similar uncomfortable positions. I can't tell whether those are paintings or photographs, although they do look like photographs. And because they haven't been redacted or don't appear to have been redacted, I think we can assume, although not be certain based on all that has happened thus far, that those two females were not believed to be victims of Epstein. Or these two photographs and or paintings could be of the same female, just taken from different angles. Now, let's go on to another image. This is taken in a bathroom on what I think is the second floor of the Epstein mansion. And on the left, you can see this rather bizarre sculpture of a woman's leg protruding from the wall. And she appears to be putting on a ballet slipper. And then towards the center of this photograph, you can see hanging over the toilet a redacted photograph. This appears to be a young female who is topless, and because the photograph has been redacted, I think we can safely assume that that young female was one of Epstein's victims. You're going to see again and again that Epstein put indecent and or provocative images in the rooms where toilets were situated throughout his house. And there are quite a few toilets and bathrooms in this massive mansion. Now, here's an image of a ghastly painting that was suspended over a fireplace. I believe this is the main foyer, but it's certainly in the lower level of the house. As you can see, it is elaborately decorated, and this grim painting suspended over the fireplace bears a bit of a resemblance, to be perfectly candid about it, to Donald Trump, although I have no idea whether the intention was to depict the current war criminal occupying the White House. Here's another image, another photograph shot of a toilet in a different part of the house. And if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you can see what appears to be a painting. And there are two boys in that painting who are pulling open their underwear. They are otherwise naked and seem to be staring down at their genitals. So again, this is something you see again and again, these types of images inside the rooms where the toilets are situated in the pedophile's house. And finally, on the main floor, there is an immense and elaborately decorated living room. And in that living room, there's a photo of what appears to be a very young Jeffrey Epstein victim. You see the photo sort of in the middle of the image on the right-hand side of the screen. This is somebody, because of the size of her shoulders, the configuration of her chest, this looks like a very young female, possibly in the range of 11 or 12 years old. It's hard to be sure, of course, but because there is a redaction of the face, I would assume that this child was also one of Epstein's victims. Now, generally, as we proceed to view these photographs, the ones I show later in time are in the upper levels of the house. Apparently, the investigators started naturally with the lower level and then worked their way up. So the later in time a photograph or an image appears in this report, the more higher up in the house it's likely to be. So on the stairwell leading to the second floor of the Epstein mansion, investigators found this photograph hanging on the wall, or it could be a photograph, it could be a painting, unclear which. Obviously, this is a photograph of a woman's chest, a scantily clad woman, unable to tell what age she is, and it's unclear, of course, whether or not this was one of Epstein's victims. Then continuing, as you can see from the following image and others in the FBI's collection, Epstein's depraved preoccupations with children were not confined to girls. This is a statue of a boy sitting on a bench somewhere on the second floor of the Epstein den of depravity. Then on a stairwell leading up to the second or third floor, there is another photograph of what we should assume is an Epstein victim, because the person's face, this young lady's face, has been redacted. It's a little hard to tell because of the size of the photograph on the wall, but this appears to be a either naked or half-naked young female who is reclining on a couch, and underneath the black square, the redaction, you can see her knees and the bottom halves of her legs. But again, I can't be sure whether that's a victim. I assume it to be a victim because of the redaction. Now, moving along, if we go further up in the house, this is a photograph of what appears to be another Epstein victim in a hallway on the second or third floor. Again, it's a little hard to tell because of the size of the photograph, but if you zoom in, you'll see that this is a naked young female who's lying on her stomach on a bed, and we can see her backside. Her private parts have been redacted out, and because she's lying on her stomach, you can't see her face. But that too is hanging in a hallway. So these images, by the way, are not tucked away, generally speaking, in Epstein's mansion. They weren't hidden in some corner that almost nobody was able to access. They were right out in the open in hallways and in bathroom facilities that guests would be expected to use when they were visiting Epstein. Now, moving on, there is another image, a painting actually, on the second or third floor. A very bizarre painting here on the right. It's quite large. This is also a hallway. It's difficult to tell whether this is a man or a woman, but because the torso has been redacted, I'm assuming that this is a woman, and what they're trying to hide there are the woman's breasts. And because this is something that I've noticed repeatedly in my review of these FBI photographs, there are a number of paintings from which the faces of the subjects in the paintings have been redacted. And one would therefore assume that the people or the women who appear in these paintings are not fictional characters or professional models who never knew Jeffrey Epstein and were hired by an artist for purposes of the painting, but that Epstein actually had some of his victims painted by professionals. And you're going to see this in subsequent photographs as well. Now, you may have a little difficulty seeing this, but there appears to be a wire hanging from the hands of the female pictured in this painting. And we can't see the hands, but the hands appear to be behind the back of this female. And it's possible that she has had her hands tied behind her back. Now, over to the left of the painting on the wall, again, it's hard to see because of the lighting and the size of the image, but there is another painting, or that could be a photograph inside the dark brown door, suspended on the wall. And you can see, if you look carefully, you'll see in the upper left-hand corner of this image up on the screen that there is a black square. So it obviously there has been a redaction made there. So it appears that that painting or photograph to the left, hanging on the wall, the dark brown wall, also showed an Epstein victim. Now, here's yet another photograph hanging in a hallway leading into a bedroom of a young nude female. The photograph in question is in the upper right-hand corner of the image on your screen. And I just want you to note here how thin this female is. And this is a recurring theme in the imagery, both the paintings and the photographs of nude females in Epstein's house. They are always very thin, sometimes, at least to my eye, to an unhealthy degree. He appears to have had a rather bizarre preoccupation with women who are emaciated. At least that's my impression from looking at the images he selected for display in his den of depravity. Now, as has been widely reported, Epstein was a fanatical devotee of massages, particularly massages in which sexual intercourse was expected. And here up on the screen, you will see a photograph the FBI investigators took of a massage room, a room that was dedicated solely to massage based on the equipment and furniture in the room. And there are a number of redacted images in this massage room, starting on the left-hand side of the image up on the screen. You'll see that there is a framed photograph, it appears, on the wall of a young naked female lying on a bed on her stomach, and her buttocks have been redacted, as has her face. And then to the right of that, there is another photograph or painting. I think that's a photograph of a naked young female. Again, I would assume that in the photograph, she's completely naked because they've redacted her genitals. There'd be no need to do that if she was wearing a bikini or underwear. And of course, they've redacted the face, suggesting you're dealing there with a victim. And then to the right of that, there is another photograph that's been redacted, which looks very similar to the one on the left. Then on the right of the image on the screen, there is a painting. This is a naked person. Hard to tell for sure whether it's a female or a male, or get any idea about the age of the person. But I think we can safely say that this person was a victim of Epstein because the face has been redacted, and that the person in this painting or photograph is entirely naked because the genitals, the area of the genitals, have been covered entirely by a large black box. Now, Epstein was known, by the way, before I talk to you a little bit about the significance of this room, I want to show you another angle, photograph taken from a different angle. So here you can see that there was another painting suspended on the wall of this massage room, a very large painting of a woman lying on her back, completely naked, with her arms sprawled, and it looks like there is painting gear all around her. And what struck me about this image, again, is just how thin and emaciated this female is. How old she is, impossible to say, but the DOJ has redacted her face. So again, based on the redaction, I infer that this is a painting of one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims. And just look around this massage table, folks. It's surrounded by images of Jeffrey Epstein's victims, some photographs and some paintings. And in all of them, the females in question are completely nude. Now, remember that when this photograph was taken, Epstein was known to have been convicted of sex crimes involving a minor in 2008. He was also known to invite his guests quite liberally to take massages at his residences. So how could any visitor who received a massage in this room not be appalled by the images displayed there? Anyone entering this room, knowing it to be situated in a mansion belonging to Epstein, ought to have been disgusted by the room and left the house in horror immediately, if they had some plausible justification for being there in the first place. Now, let's continue moving to another part of the house. Here you can see in a bathroom again, this is evidently another victim of Jeffrey Epstein featured in the photograph. She too is naked because the area of her genitals has been redacted, and so too has her face. And then there's this image appearing in a hallway, again, an area where people would be expected, visitors would be expected to be passing by, and they'd be able to see it. This too appears to be a victim because the face has been redacted. I'm talking about the photograph hanging on the wall under the lighting fixture, and that is quite clearly a very young, slender female lying on her back, naked. Now, this image is from a spectacularly decorated bedroom, possibly on the 3rd floor. And as you can see, there is a painting situated in the corner of this bedroom behind or on top of a couch. And that painting also features a scantily clad woman on a bed. I'm presuming from the fact that the face of this, the subject of this painting has not been redacted, that this is not a victim of Jeffrey Epstein. Now, let's move on to another creepy painting from a bedroom on the 3rd or 4th floor of the Epstein mansion. And here you can see, again, this is a hallway, an area of the house where people would be passing by, and visitors would have access to this if they were on this floor. And you'll see that there is a male sitting down, and to the left, there is a scantily clad, perhaps even a naked young female. And that female, just judging by the dimensions of her body and the fact that she's short, may very well be a child. And because the face has been redacted, we can infer that this is probably a victim who is featured in this painting. And also the area where her genitals will be has been redacted. So I think we can infer that in this painting, this female minor is completely naked. So as I've indicated, there are a number of paintings in the Epstein mansion, or were, before it was sold in 2021, that feature young females, oftentimes evidently children, whose faces have been redacted, and therefore it appears that Epstein arranged for a number of his victims to be painted by, one would presume, professional artists, judging from the quality of the painting. If that's true, one wonders whether investigators have sought for, found, and questioned these photographers and also the painters, because the photographs themselves seem to be quite professionally done. So it may well be that he engaged professionals both for the photography and for the paintings of certain of his victims. And any minimally competent investigator would have understood that finding and questioning these painters and photographers could yield some very important information, not only about Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, but about the heinous crimes undoubtedly committed by many of his associates. Now, here's another creepy painting from a bedroom on the 3rd or 4th floor of the Epstein den of depravity. And you'll see here that this painting features three young females. One is very clearly a child, and it's entirely, I'm sorry, there's four females that I can make out in this painting, including one standing up to the left, one seated on the ground, and a third in the center. That's a child dancing, and also, the fourth female reclined on her stomach on some piece of furniture. Now, it's possible, I can't say for sure, that the child dancing in the center of this painting is a boy. But in any event, as you can see, all the figures depicted in this painting are naked. And this large, bizarre painting dominated this particular bedroom, which was elaborately decorated, to say the least. Now, moving away from photographs and paintings of nude females, here is a look at Jeffrey Epstein's gym. It actually consisted of two rooms. This is one of the rooms, and here's the second of them. And you'll see that Epstein had some kind of a sculpture situated in the second part of his rather large gymnasium. I'm not going to show it to you, but there's another photograph in this collection of the gym equipment in a closet, and in this closet there were 7 or 8 different pairs of athletic footwear, and there were multiple boxing gloves and all kinds of other equipment. And one of the impressions I come away with from looking at this collection of photographs is that Jeffrey Epstein had like 5 or 10 of everything. It wasn't enough for him to have one pair of boxing gloves or one kitchen. He's got like 5 kitchens, 10 bathrooms, 10 boxing gloves. There are closets full of winter jackets, just, entire closets devoted to his winter jacket collection, jackets that appear to be of a very high quality. This is a man whose proclivity for consumption was not only conspicuous, but unlimited. Frugality was definitely not one of Jeffrey Epstein's strong points. Now, you'll recall that Virginia Giuffre, as I mentioned near the outset of this report, described being repeatedly subjected to sadomasochistic sexual torture in a massage room that she named the dungeon. I can't be sure of this, but something tells me that this is the stairwell leading into the dungeon. The reason why I have that feeling is just this is a dark part of the house. It appears, based on my interpretation of these photographs, to be in the lower part of the house, and it has some pretty bizarre dungeon-like things in it. You'll see in the lower right-hand corner, there's a bronze sculpture of what I assume is a naked goddess of love, Aphrodite. Now, as you continue up this stairwell, you come across something, again, lower right-hand corner, which appears to be a crystal ball. That's a bit weird. And then you go further up the stairwell, and you have this image on the wall, conspicuously displayed. I don't know what that means, but that kind of looks to my uninformed eye as some kind of occult image. If you know what that is, or think you know what that is, please feel free to leave that in the comments, because I'd be happy to be educated about that. Now, another room that appeared in this collection of photographs seems to have been set up for listening to music, and it's this room, which I think was up around the 3rd or the 4th level. You'll see there are a whole bunch of speakers in here opposite a large couch, and above the speakers on the wall there is what appears to be a photograph. It could also be a painting, and much of the face of the figure in that photograph or painting has been redacted, and based on what I can make out, that's a child. And I'm not talking here about a 14 or a 13-year-old child. I'm talking about a 7 or 8-year-old child. That's what it looks like to me when I look at it more closely. And notice that it is the only image that has been suspended on that wall that is facing the couch. So it was obviously intended by Epstein to dominate his, listening experience when he came into this room to listen to music. And then you can see behind the couch, there's a desk, which also has speakers on it, that is also facing the image of the child on the wall. Now, the final disturbing image I want to show you comes from a credenza on the 4th or 5th floor. On that credenza was situated a small sculpture that looked like this. And as you can see, you have two in this sculpture, females. They're, I think, clearly quite young. Whether they're intended to depict minors or not, I don't know. But they do appear to be engaged in either intercourse or some kind of sexual activity. So again, this was conspicuously displayed in a room where, numerous of Epstein's guests may have been invited to recline. Now, in the 1,200 photographs I examined, I assure you that there are many more images of young naked or semi-naked females whose photographs were hanging up on some wall in this monster's house. In the interest of time, and simply because it's hard to stomach them all, I've not shown them to you in their entirety, not even close. The bottom line is this, folks: anyone, and I mean anyone, who spent a significant amount of time in that den of depravity must have known that Epstein continued to harbor a sick sexual obsession with minor females. With respect to anyone who spent significant time in that mansion in the years leading up to Epstein's departure from this earth, our operating assumption should be that they knew exactly what kind of monster Jeffrey Epstein continued to be. Now, a few other points about the FBI's photographic collection of Epstein's New York House of Horrors. First, investigators found what I believe may be a key piece of evidence for establishing the identities of other men who sexually abused Jeffrey Epstein's victims, or young females, minors, children, trafficked by Epstein to them. And that piece of evidence is this. This is a notebook. You'll see at the top, it refers to another address, 301 66th Street. So 2nd Avenue. So that's also on the Upper East Side. That's in this posh part of Manhattan. And you'll see it says apartments in the upper right-hand corner of the page that is photographed here. So there were apparently multiple apartments to which Epstein, I don't know if that's Epstein's handwriting, but it was found in Epstein's mansion. And you'll see that in the upper left-hand corner of the page pictured on the screen here, there are numerous apartments referred to: 2G, 10N, 11B, 8H, 10B, then 3M, 7J, 8A, 11P, 11J. So it looks like, I don't think there's any repetition in there, so it looks like 10 different apartments in this Upper East Side building. And then the second column, which has been redacted, is code. I don't know why they would have redacted that. And then finally, in the right-hand column, there's guest. Why would they have redacted that? Shouldn't we be told who was staying there? I mean, unless the guest in question was a victim of Jeffrey Epstein. But why would Jeffrey Epstein be putting up these young females that he was abusing in other apartments when he himself had such a massive house that was, had many bedrooms in it, many bathrooms, many kitchens, and when he himself wanted to have, these young victims around him, presumably at all hours of the day. But I would imagine that what this page records is the identities of men, or certainly may record the identities of some of the men to whom Epstein trafficked these minor females. And then back down at the bottom half of this page, it says staff contact number. I'm not sure if this is a list of the staff who were maybe taking care of these particular apartments, or maybe they were the staff who worked at Epstein's mansion, or both. And two of the names, for some reason, under the heading staff contact on the left, you'll see there's a column for names. Two of the names have been left unredacted, Leo and Carlos, but the others have been redacted. Why that was done, who knows? But this could be an important piece of evidence for establishing the identities of at least some of the other men to whom Epstein trafficked these victims. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, it's an important point, is that there's plenty of evidence that Epstein recorded everything that happened in this house of horrors. So again and again in the FBI's collection of photos, I found this. Multiple doors had this red warning sign on them, 24-hour video surveillance. I don't know if those warnings, those signs were visible to Epstein's guests, but they may well have been. In any case, they certainly do provide evidence that the cameras were rolling Shays Epstein all the time, 7 days a week. And here is another one on a different floor. You'll see, again, on a door in a hallway, 24-hour surveillance. And then on top of all of that, the investigators found many DVDs. There is, for example, this drawer. There's a whole bunch of computer discs in there. If they're doing their job, they would have inspected all of them, and may well have found, and I would be very surprised if they didn't find, recorded images of Epstein's powerful associates abusing female children. And then here is another smattering of DVDs in a drawer. I don't know if that's the same piece of furniture, but they evidently found, FBI investigators, in addition to the computer discs in that drawer, a number of photographs of the sadistic beast with his victims. And I'm assuming that those are his victims because the faces have been redacted. And finally, there's this photo, which shows a room that has the door to which has a sign on it that says Cisco Systems. And, I'm no electronics expert, but that looks to me like a whole lot of computer and recording equipment. And just to, drive home the point, this is a photograph that was published last year in a New York Times article. And you'll see in the upper right-hand corner, this is a bedroom. I showed you some photographs from this elaborately decorated bedroom a few minutes ago. And the New York Times has helpfully circled in the upper right-hand corner of this photograph a hidden camera. So no doubt that the investigation would have yielded an abundance of photographic and video evidence, not only of Epstein's crimes, but also crimes committed against these minors by numerous of his powerful associates and friends. Despite this, however, the DOJ has disclosed no or almost no videos recorded in this house of horrors. I've seen maybe 2 or 3 videos of Epstein chasing young ladies around a kitchen table, or young ladies dancing with their faces redacted. And in none of those videos, the ones that I've seen to date, do you see any of Epstein's powerful associates. And the idea that there is no video evidence of his powerful associates interacting with minor females who are victims of Jeffrey Epstein, or who are individuals who were trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein, that there's no such evidence. There was none found in this mansion, despite everything that I've shown to you. That's simply preposterous. And there's absolutely no excuse for the fact that none of it has been disclosed to the public. Therefore, and this, by the way, is also true not only of the FBI, the DOJ, it's also true of the House Oversight Committee. The Democrats haven't disclosed any such video evidence either, even though they're constantly crowing about how committed they are to transparency. In fact, they themselves have disclosed to date a tiny fraction of the large body of evidence that is readily available to them. And therefore, my friends, and I say this in closing, can't be said often enough, it's vital that all of us maintain the pressure on the Department of Justice and the House Oversight Committee to disclose it all. However horrifying all the published evidence we have seen to date may be, I think there's compelling reason to believe that we have only scraped the surface of this unspeakable scandal. And we have much more to learn about the crimes committed by the evil beasts who tormented these young females. And with that, I'll be concluding my report today. And if you found this to be informative, please do like and share it. And if you're not already a subscriber to Reason to Resist, please become one and help us to expand the reach of our unapologetic brand of resistance journalism. Thank you very much, and I look forward to our next discussion.